Good morning again, and welcome to SCORE Central Jersey webinar on 3 wise men and women that you need for your small business. In other words, I'm going to talk about how you can be prepared for anything that might come up, especially those unanticipated issues that arise when you own a small business. For those of you who aren't aware, SCORE is a nationwide organization. We're a resource partner with the Small Business Administration. And our mission is to help small businesses wherever they are. Help you get started if you're just thinking about a business. If you've already decided what your business is, we can help you get going with that. We can help you grow. And hopefully we help you prosper over time. We have over 250 chapters across the United States, and this says 10,000, but I think we have about 13,000 mentors across the US right now. So we have someone for you, probably no matter what your question, no matter what your industry is, and we would love to help you. The 3 things that SCORE does are offer education services. And those services are in the form of seminars and webinars like the one you're having today, education, information on a whole variety of topics that are of interest to small businesses. We have lots and lots of resources, probably articles, blogs, templates, anything you might need, any topic you might need for a small business. All of those resources are absolutely for free. And you can get them at our website, centraljersey.score.org. And then I think the most important thing we do is mentoring. We pair small businesses with 1 or 2 mentors, and we can work with you on your business at whatever development stage you're in. And so the mentoring is a hands-on helping situation, pairing small businesses with an expert business person to help you walk through your business. Again, you can find a mentor by going to our website, and right on the front page, it'll say, find a mentor. Our chapter serves Middlesex, Somerset, and Hunterdon counties, but we're virtual these days. So really we're serving anybody wherever they are, either in our area or beyond our area. Just a little bit of webinar housekeeping. You can put your questions. We'll have a few minutes for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. You can put those questions in the Q&A, and we'll be watching those as we go along. We are going to take questions at the end of the webinar. We have one of our people, I think Rob, has some slides that he's going to show today. So we will send a copy of Rob's slides out after the webinar to everyone who's attended. We are recording the session today, so you can go to our website and find the session if you want to listen to it again, or if you want to share that with anybody else. Give us a couple of days to get that the webinar up there and loaded. And then we would appreciate it if you would complete the evaluation. In a couple of days, you will get an evaluation from our national office. And it's very helpful to us if you would complete that and let us know how you like the webinar. Is there anything we can do to make things better? Are there other topics that you would be interested in? So we appreciate that from you, and we appreciate you attending today. Our presenters are all experts in their fields, and they indeed are wise men and women. Our first speaker is going to be Tina Parmigiano. She is a tax professional and owns her own TaxWise Services business, is an accountant, and her email is listed here. Peter Greenbaum, I think Peter's gonna, I can't remember, I think Peter's gonna go third. Sorry, I got him out of order. Peter is an attorney. He's a legal expert with Willents, Goldman, and Spitzer, and his email is here as well. And Rob Girolando is an insurance executive He also is a certified SCORE mentor, so you could ask for him as a mentor if you wanted. And his email is listed here as well. So we're going to start with Tina. I'm going to get off. Rob is going to come up next and talk about insurance, and then Peter going to talk about the legal aspects of a business. So Tina.
Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here and sharing some wisdom that I have learned over the years. I have been in business for myself with Parmigiano Tax-Wise Services for more than 25 years. A lot has changed, a lot has happened as far as the tax industry has gone, and as far as accounting basically stays the same other than the type of businesses that we have. This morning, I just want to share with you some of the major reasons why, if you're going into business or if you've been in business for a while, the importance of either having an accountant, hiring a bookkeeper, and knowing your tax, put some tax planning in place and the tax ramifications of your business and how to keep track of everything. Through the years, I've helped a lot of businesses start up, and a lot of times what happens is they run into the whole game of, oh yes, they're all excited, they're starting their business. They get off on the complete wrong foot. They want to do everything beside, they want to save money, and they think that they can do it all by themselves. Sometimes you can, but most of the times you can't. If nothing else, then at least seek the advice of someone that does that for a living. Just like if I hired a plumber, I would want somebody that knew how to plumb, not hire an electrician to come and install my pipes. So that's the important thing. And when you're starting a business out there, you need to make sure that you build it on a firm financial foundation. And that means to get that team together. If you want to handle your bookkeeping, that's fine, as long as you know what you're doing, or you call somebody in to help you set up the books that you need to keep track of and explain to you what you need to do, the income, the expenses, what you can and can't claim on a tax return, where you need to put things, because accounting and tax aren't the same when it comes time to do the end of the year statements. So that's so important. Recently, I have had clients that have brought to me right now, I just finished somebody's tax returns that hadn't filed in 6 years. And what happened is the IRS said, okay, you owe us $42,000, but now that I'm done with it, after the business and all of that, the business had a loss for several years, but because it's so far gone, it's so far behind the statute of limitations has run out. And so they're not going to get to claim a lot of that. So where they owed money, where they were supposed to get money back, they're not getting it. They only have to pay now. So when you don't put the right things in place, at the end of the day, you're digging more of a ditch for yourself that you got to climb out of than spending minimal amount in the beginning to have everything in place. When you're looking for, doesn't mean that you have to run out and get a CPA. Doesn't mean that you have to hire the best of the best. It means that you need to get someone that knows what to do, and look for someone that is well-versed in the type of business that you have. Because if you're running a retail store, somebody that you bring in to help you do your books may not have never done retail, but they're great with construction. There's all different types of accountants that specialize, and make sure that they know what they're doing. Look at their certifications, look at, how long they've been doing bookkeeping and accounting. Not all accountants do a lot of taxes. Make sure that when you're hiring somebody to do taxes or to talk to, when you're doing getting your tax planning in place, that they have the experience, that they have the certifications, their CPAs are the CPEs are up to date. Because if you're taking on you start your new business and you go through the end of the year and you're like, I can do these taxes and it's not a problem. I'll just follow the directions here and do it. Well, what happens if the tax law just changed and the information that you have is out of date? Because it's very easy to have that happen. You need to make sure that if you're going to do your taxes yourself, that you know what you're doing, because you can get yourself in a whole lot of trouble. And it's not fun when you come up against the penalties and the interest. And at the end of the day, you're the one responsible. So find someone, if nothing else, that will take a look at your taxes to make sure that you did them right. If you don't hire somebody, have them look it over. It's less costly, but my thing is, of course, since I do taxes and been doing it for a long time, it's much easier to have them done right the first time and pay that one fee at the end of the year to have your taxes done than it is to do them yourself. Client that I no longer work with decided that they were going to do their taxes themselves, had a C corporation, but filed it as an LLC or a sole proprietorship, did it by paper. IRS doesn't know. And then now they're getting audited big time because the taxes weren't done properly. Called me in after the fact, but by the time I'm done correcting all the old stuff to include personal, then you've got to come in and redo everything in the amending. It's not fun. It ended up costing her 4 times the amount it would have if it had just been done right the first time, because there was a lot of things that you had to do. So when you're starting your business, rule of thumb, to lay that firm foundation, you need to have in place when you're starting, make sure that you have the financing that you need, the financial end to support whatever business that you're going to start. You can start on a shoestring. It doesn't mean that you go out and you buy the best and the biggest and the fanciest of everything. You start with what you have and you move forward. The people that you need to have on your team, assemble a board for yourself. You're the CEO of your company, so you need to have that insurance in place. I find so many of my clients that have online businesses don't have any insurance, none whatsoever. And with cybersecurity out there nowadays, and with the way that people are infringing on something that you created, you need to have insurance in place or can hold you liable because you stated something that was not true and they can come back on you. And what you list, Privacy Act, all of those different things, whether you're selling on Facebook or you have your own website, whatever it is, insurance is something that we all need. If you're a storefront, you need that business liability. If you have employees, you need that workers' comp. There are so many different things that you need. Call your insurance guy, find a good insurance guy, call Rob, ask for him, say, hey, I need some help. I'm starting this business. What kind of insurance do I need? You know, that you need that in place. If you are a partnership or you've got more than one person in your business, then you need to make sure that you talk to somebody like Peter, because partnerships can go wrong at the drop of a hat. And let me tell you, if you don't have your partnership agreement and stuff in place, it can cost you thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. You have to pull in your accountant. And if you've been doing it yourself, you don't know where you're at the end of the day, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So take good advice for us. And
Tina, can I interrupt and just ask
Sure.
one question, clarify? Where should people go to find, I'm just starting a business, I don't have a lot of money. Where can I go to find an accountant that could help me as a getting started or a newly formed small business? Where do I find them?
Well, first place you can start with SCORE, because they also have people that they know that you can do. There's places called bookkeeping.com where they list different bookkeepers, but go through the people in your area if you want somebody close to home, and just ask questions. Ask, like, how long have they been in business? What do they look at? Do they help small business startups? That's one thing that you really want to look for is small business startups, because you're starting from scratch. You don't have a lot of money, and they'll be more willing to work with you and give you the advice that you need and to walk through those things. I have a whole list of people that I work with that if I can't help you because I don't know your industry well, I can refer them to, to the client.
So if I'm starting a hair salon, for instance, maybe, and just correct me if I'm doing this wrong, but I would suggest that they talk to other hair salon owners
Correct.
in the area or wherever and find out who they use and are they happy with that accountant?
Yes. Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
accountant serving them well? And then
Right.
maybe give that person a call or give 2 or 3 people a call. Is that a starting
Yes.
point?
Yes, that's a very good, very good way to do it. And hopefully you'll find them all using an accountant or
Yeah.
somebody that can help put it in place. But
Right.
yeah, start out with your own industry, ask questions. It's a good place to do it. Or if you've been having your own personal, tax preparer, ask them, I'm starting my business. Do you do that kind of work? Or who can I call and talk to about, getting set up with the books and keeping them in place?
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Tina.
Yes, you're welcome.
We'll come back with questions, I'm sure.
Yes.
Rob Gerlando is going to talk to us about insurance.
Rob, I was going to say you were muted, but you're not anymore.
Yeah, sorry. Hold on one second. I just need to share my screens. Bear with me. Okay. So quickly, I always do have to do a disclaimer as well. I am a retired insurance executive of 23 years. So technically, I am no longer licensed like Peter and Tina are to do the business that they do. And I'm no longer licensed to specifically recommend for you, what company is correct, what coverage limits are correct, what carrier pays the best claims, what is the correct rate for you. So I always just want to say that there's certain things that I can cover. Like today, I'm going to cover some things. As you'll see, my goal today is just to present some information to you and to kind of continue that discussion. What are the risks for you that you take if you do not have a licensed insurance person? Okay. So here's my objectives today. I'm going to explain why an insurance person is important for small business. I'm going to talk about a few types quickly of insurance that's required for a small business. As you'll see, compliance is a big issue in the insurance world. It's a boring word, but it's a very dangerous word. And no one wants to get in trouble from a compliance standpoint. And then similar to what we've been talking about, what are the steps you should take to find a good insurance person? How long that should be, and kind of generally some direction there. So at its most basic level, without getting into the history of insurance, which is pretty boring, insurance is a key, and it's always been a key risk management strategy. Okay, so you essentially pay a premium to an insurance company, and they take your risk. You transfer your risk to the insurance company. And a few of the things, the benefits of that are that you get some protection of your assets, such as cash or property, protection from the loss of income. We've seen a lot of that over the past few years in terms of loss of income. Maintaining continuing financing. That's another really important reason why insurance is important, and why an insurance person is important as well. It's very complicated. Protection from injuries and damages that you receive or that you inflict on others through your business. That's called liability. And that can be extremely expensive if you do not have the correct coverage. There's legal and regulatory requirements. Another benefit for insurance, and again, a key insurance person would be, do you have the right benefits for your employees? Do you have 401ks? Do you have medical insurance for them? Are they protected? And do you offer, will you be able to retain your key employees because you have good benefits? We've certainly seen this week, and we see every week in the news that there's catastrophes that continue to cause major issues around the country and around the globe. So business continuity becomes a bigger risk management question. Are you going to be able to recover from, a tornado like the one we saw this week? So that's a major question and a key for your insurance person. Protection from errors. Again, this is, liability. If you are liable and you are found negligent, you could be sued for significant amounts of money. And then the last point here is, I think there are many people, especially now, who think that their personal insurance is going to cover them for a small, business that they have running out of their home, even if they don't have some employees. And I'm here to tell you that your personal insurance will not cover any type of real significant or major business exposure included. The point of this slide is just to remind you that, an insurance person is going to be needed if you're going to secure financing. Generally speaking, they're going to want to see that you have all of these things in place. They're going to want to see that you have an accountant. They're going to want to see that you have a lawyer. They're going to want to make sure that you have insurance in place, generally speaking, and that these coverages would be provided by your package. From a compliance standpoint, the point of this slide is just to remind you that there are a lot of insurance policies that are required at the federal level, many at the state level, at the county and the local level. And if you do not have the correct ones, your business faces a compliance risk, which again is kind of a boring term, but it's a big exposure. It's a huge risk. If you do not have medical insurance in certain states, that could be a compliance risk. You could face fines. In New Jersey, automotive insurance is required on all the vehicles, just like it is for personal insurance. You need auto insurance for any kind of commercial vehicles that you have, and that's required. And if you don't have the correct insurance, you're likely to get sued and get fines. And workers' compensation is definitely required in the state of New Jersey as well for any employees that you have. Okay, so then kind of moving forward, how do you find an agent or broker? So this is, again, I think it's similar. I can't tell you, hey, I know this company, it's a great company, try it for this coverage. Like that's where hopefully this seminar will help you, or my slides will help you. But you definitely want to talk to other people. That's the number one thing you can do. Just like Tina is saying, talk to other people that do your personal insurance, find out what company that is. Talk to people who are in your industry and find out what insurance company they use and how it's going. You want to look at different quotes. You want to look at different coverages. You want to compare deductibles, which are your retention, etc. You want to make sure that the company is stable and accessible. So it's providing good service and it has good financial ratings. That's like a really important thing to look at in an insurance company. I have independent agents on here versus independent brokers. So quickly, I'll just give you some info on that. An independent agent is somebody who works like for State Farm, as an example. They work only for State Farm. So if you call that agent, they're only going to be able to offer you State Farm products. But if you call an insurance broker, the broker is just like a stockbroker, and they're going to have multiple different products to potentially meet your needs. So you might want to try both. But if you're going to start with one, I would suggest an insurance broker who might have more companies at their disposal to sort of look at your package, which is unique. And then I have an article here that's in the slides that you can click on, which is called the 8 Tips of Finding the Right Insurance Company. So that's in the document, and you can check that article out when the slides come around. All right, so this is my last slide. So you really do have to look. And so the point of this is insurance is really complicated. You face a high degree of risk if you do not have a good insurance person. But when you're looking at the policy, does it make sense? Would you cover it, or could you cover it with your financial statement without insurance? I think a lot of people would say no. Look at the different deductibles and retentions and coverage limit. Do you have enough coverage? Is it sufficient? And does your policy provide for growth? If your business is going to grow this year and you expect it to grow, your insurance policy rather should allow for that growth. And are there any time constraints on the coverage or modifying the coverage? Most of the policies are annual policies, so you just want to make sure that if you need to make a change or something changes with your business, that you can call your broker and they can make a change. That's my last slide. I'm going to cut my share. All right.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, insurance is really critical, and I think a lot of people don't think about all the different kinds of insurance that we need to be looking at. And it goes back to, we're going to talk about that when we talk about with Peter, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So if you have an insurance broker, an agent, they can walk you through all the different kinds of insurance that you are required to have and that you probably should have, so they can bring you up to speed on anything that your business might need.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
So thanks, Rob. And now Peter, our legal expert, is going to talk about attorneys and why you might need an attorney and how to find an attorney.
Thank you, Jane, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, some quick background. I'm an attorney with Wilentz, Coleman, and Spitzer, which is headquartered in Woodbridge, but we've got offices at the Shore, in Manhattan, Philly, but the main office is Woodbridge. We've got about 100 attorneys, and everybody specializes in something. I personally specialize in corporate, what's called corporate work. I represent small businesses, from your one owner business to multiple owners, and public companies, and everywhere in between. Every industry, specialty, service, whatever it may be. So it could be manufacturing, it could be service, it could be restaurant, whatever. So I represent, from the corporate perspective, all of that. And I do want to piggyback and start off by hitting something what Tina said, which is, find a professional that knows your industry. For example, I do a lot of healthcare work. I represent a lot of doctors. I represent hospitals. It's a very heavily regulated practice area. Federal laws, state laws, every state law. Every state has different laws, just like Tina with it from the tax perspective. And I want to highlight what she said is you don't want to necessarily go to someone who does litigation to ask them about healthcare compliance. Worlds don't intersect ever. Find the people who are professionals in that industry. You'll help the process a lot. And that goes, on the flip side, I don't do litigation. I don't do tax work. I don't do estate planning. I do corporate stuff. So everyone has their specialty, and you should look for that. Number two is both Tina and Rob mentioned what I would call the team. I always ask clients, who is your accountant? Who's your insurance person? Who's your banker? And I ask them that because we do a lot of work together. Everything I do from the corporate side has tax implications all over the place. And I would never give tax advice. I say, who's your accountant, Tina, or whomever? I need to talk to them, because anything I do creeps into the tax side. And if I do something wrong, it screws up your taxes. So long story short on that is make sure you've got a good team assembled. So what I want to do very quickly is give you a crash course on corporate law and things to think about in operating a small business. First is the very basic, which is forming an entity. If you are a consultant or if you do a restaurant business or whatever, you shouldn't be operating that business through your own name, through your own social security number. You should be forming either an LLC or a corporation to protect you as the individual, personal person. And back to the team concept is whether you form a corporation, and there's different types of corporations from a tax perspective. It's called S Corp and C Corp, but or whether you form an LLC, there's a tax related reasons why you may do one over the other. And again, so I keep on looking at Tina and accountants. When you take that first step, you should always have the accountant in the loop as well. And why do you form an entity to run the business as opposed to just hanging the shingle, as they say, outside? Well, if you're a consultant or you're a restaurant or whatever, and you don't pay a vendor or you have somebody that gets hurt on your business property, that individual will sue the business. Well, who is the business? If the business is you individually, they sue you individually. If the business is an LLC or a corporation, the business is the LLC is in the corporation. It's not you individually. And why that's super important is because if it's you individually owning the business, directly owning the business, and somebody sues, they're suing you personally. Your house, your personal bank accounts, your car, all your personal property is exposed and at risk. Conversely, if you form the LLC or you form a corporation and you're 100% owner of that corporation or LLC, but that LLC or corporation, that is the business. And so if there's a problem, a client, a customer, whatever, sues, they are suing that entity, and you have just put a shield over yourself personally. I like to think of it from Rob's perspective as another insurance policy. You're for a one-time formation at the beginning, you're kind of protecting yourself from a lot of risk. So that's the first step. You should always form an entity. It's very easy to do. I file something with the state. It's give or take $100. It could be done in one business day. From there, Tina, and your accountant gets the taxpayer ID number, and you're off and running. You get a bank account and you're ready to go. So that's the first thing I wanted to hit on. The second thing I want to hit on is some very basic general agreements that I come across with small businesses all the time and help them prepare and think about. And again, I keep on referring back to Tina because she did a perfect introduction on this: partnership agreements. If you have a partner, and I use that term generically, if you are a co-owner with somebody, whether you're 50-50, 2/3, 1/3 owners, whatever industry, you should have what I'll call generically a partnership agreement. This is the agreement that governs the relationship between you and your co-owner. It hits topics like percentages, who owns what. It hits topics like money. In other words, how much money does it, if there's profits, what each of you are entitled to percentage wise. If anyone's doing services like, your specific duties on top of it, maybe they pull a salary off the top, but regardless, it outlines the money entitlements between the two of you, or however many partners you've got. Third, it hits management related items. How are decisions made? If you want to hire somebody and you want to fire somebody, or you want to buy a piece of equipment, if you have a partner, do you need to talk to that partner? Do you need to get that partner's approval? And then lastly, the big topic it hits is, what if you no longer want to be partners with that person? What happens if you want to separate? Maybe somebody hits the lottery and they want to move to Florida. Maybe somebody just wants to retire because they're getting old. Maybe they just don't get along and they want to separate. But long story short, what are the mechanics on that side? And again, to stress it from Tina's perspective, or what she said earlier, is you'd rather do this stuff up front at the beginning of the business relationship, rather than ignoring it and thinking I don't need to deal with it, and then dealing with that topic or that issue down the line when it pops up. And why is that? Because if you do it at the beginning of the relationship, there's no agendas, everybody's on the same page. It's almost like laying out expectations. What do I expect from you? What do you expect from me? It helps the business relationship progress smoothly. If you ignore it and you don't do it and there's a problem, well, what happens? well, then you start fighting. And to Tina's point, which you mentioned earlier, it's a lot more expensive, both in terms of professional fees and in terms of your time dealing with the fight later on, rather than dealing with it up front. And again, I always say laying out the expectation. And to give you, a few, real life examples, on this very topic, I kind of put it in three categories. Those folks who have, co-owners of a business that either don't have an agreement or have an agreement that just doesn't spell out what they think it should be spelling out, or agreements that they've drafted years and years and years ago and have never looked at again. Because what typically happens is you put it in a drawer, you never look at it. You look at it when there's a problem. And if you take it out, and it's outdated, that's, that's not good either. So for example, I had one situation a few years ago in a restaurant industry, husband and wife running the restaurant, 50-50 owners, each couple 50-50 owners. The one couple came to me and said, listen, we work 80 hours a week. We're there 7 days a week. We're running the restaurant. The other couple comes in every day. They go sit at the bar. They have a few drinks. They sit, then they grab some dinner. And then they go to the cash register, take out a few bucks. And we're not happy with that. And so my first question always is, what's the agreement say? Well, they don't have an agreement. So that's the scenario you want to prevent up front. Again, I get back to the word expectations. What is everybody's expectations? Number two is, as I said a moment ago, contracts that are just flat out wrong and don't reflect what you think the deal is. Slightly off topic, but I had a client come in a few years ago. He sold his business, and he and the buyer wrote on a piece of paper the terms of the sale. And he said, oh, the buyer didn't pay me what the purchase price. I transferred the business over, but he didn't pay me. I said, great, let me see the contract. I looked at the contract. I couldn't understand what the contract meant. Like, how much do you think you're entitled to? So I asked him, I don't understand this. What do you think you're entitled to off of your various formulas and words here? He told me a number. We continued talking for a half an hour. I asked him again, what do you think you're entitled to? He gave me a different number. Kept on talking. He gave me a third different number. So in the course of one conversation, he couldn't tell me what he thinks his purchase price or his sales price was. So again, it's always bad to have bad contracts. And third is the contracts that you've drafted and prepared years and years and years ago, which is great. You actually took the time to do it. But when you take them out, they're not necessarily good anymore. They're stale, they're outdated. I had one client years and years ago who was in the robocall industry, where you get those annoying phone calls every night. Way back when, at one point, that was not a regulated industry. So they were just, making these calls nonstop, making a lot of money. Years ago, then they did all these regulations and really cracked down on what these type of companies could do. And so their revenue really decreased because of these new regulations. Well, one of the guys wanted to retire. They took out the contract that they had signed in the good times when things were unregulated. And that contract said if somebody wants to retire, their buyout is like $10 million. Well, again, that was in the good times. The business had significantly declined. And so buying out at a $10 million figure no longer made sense, because it wasn't the good times anymore. So that's a stale or a bad contract. So point is, coming sort of full circle on all three things, is if you have a partner, it's important to have a partnership agreement, and B, it's important to have a partnership agreement that you think about either before you start the business or really right at the infancy, because the longer you wait, number one, the more likely you are to, put it off, not important. And B is, then people start getting their, expectations that may not be in line with the expectations at the beginning. It's a lot harder to deal with it then. So that is a, sort of crash course on partnership agreements. One other type of agreement that I want to mention that I come across often in my day-to-day travels is employment agreements. You're an employer, you might have 1 employee, 2 employees, 10 employees, whatever. There is no legal requirement to have an employment agreement. In New Jersey, everybody's at will. They can quit, you can fire them. You can fire them for any reason as long as it's not a discriminatory or, a protected class reason. In other words, production's bad, et cetera, you can let them go. So you don't need an employment agreement, but there are scenarios where you really need to have one. And most significantly, and thinking about it, is if you are in a service industry where the client interaction really belongs to the salespeople. And so you're the owner, but you may not know all the salespeople, the clients, personally. The relationship is with the salespeople. And so if that is the scenario, the concern is if they leave, they can leave with that client list and start calling up that client list and soliciting that client list after they leave. So in an employment agreement, oftentimes in that scenario, we put in what's called a restrictive covenant or a non-solicitation provision, which says when you leave and for a period of time after leaving, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, you cannot solicit clients. This is very important. For example, I mentioned I do healthcare in physician offices. With the associate non-owner physicians, we say you can't call up your patients when you leave. Obviously, a patient is free to choose wherever they want to go, but you don't want the physician to leave, join another practice, and start calling up the patients and saying, "Hey, I'm over here now." And it's like that with pretty much all service areas, a thing to think about. Again, I want to stress that you don't need to have employment agreements, but there are scenarios where you really, really want to have one. So that's, I'll say, a crash course in corporate law. What I personally do on top of all this is I negotiate and draft, virtually all types of agreements. And I always say, before you sign something, you should really have the folks who, know those kind of contracts look at them. Your professionals, such as the 3 professionals on this webinar, is have them look at it, even a quick look. And in terms of fees, I certainly appreciate clients asking me up front, what is this going to cost? I certainly get it. I'm a business owner because I own my firm too. So I get it, in terms of wanting to know what you're going to pay. And I always have that conversation with my clients before I do anything, which is, this is what I need from you. These are the questions you need to answer. And then once I know that, we can get sort of a framework in terms of what I'm going to do and how much it's going to cost. I never start drafting without talking to clients and understanding what they want. There are these organizations out there, LegalZoom and all these, website-based legal-related places where you can get template documents. Yeah, you can get template documents, but they may do you no good because they may not address anything you want. So that's why I say is have that conversation, and then I can tell you, okay, this is what you need, and this is what what the estimate is on it. So with that, I think I am done with my section, and I will turn it back over to Jane.
Just a quick question, and this is what I have with a lot of my clients that are so I've just started my business. I've registered with the state. I'm an LLC, and I'm just getting going. Can I come to you at that point? Because right now, I don't have any legal issues. I don't think, but I don't know that I have any legal problems. Can I call you and say, I'm just starting my business? I'd like to consider using you as my attorney, but I don't really have anything to bring to you right this minute. I mean, how do you start that relationship?
Yeah, so from my perspective, from the legal perspective, anyone can call me at any time. And I do get calls like that often, which is, I just want an attorney, on retainer, as they say. I don't need anything, or I don't think I need anything, but I just want to know I can call somebody. And I get that, fairly often. And I'll talk to the person, see what type of business they have, see what's going on. And then I'll say to them either A, these are the types of things you may need, or B is, seems like you're in good shape, and get back to me if you ever need anything, and you got my phone number, I'm always available. But that type of phone call is never a bad phone call.
So it's kind of like when I talk to my clients, I talked to them about establishing a relationship with an attorney. Maybe call a couple or 3 attorneys, find the person that you think you have a relationship with and meets the criteria that you're looking for, and then at least have a conversation with them. Because when I get into a problem, I need somebody and it's an emergency. Where do I go, you know? So,
And to add to that, Jane, and I'm just thinking of something that happened recently. I got a frantic call from a client saying, I need something very specific they got a subpoena from the Department of Labor. That's not my area, but they called me up and I said, yep, I got the person right in my office down the hall. You can talk to, no problem. Here's the person.
I found this happening when COVID started and they started shutting down businesses. And then there was government was throwing out all this money, the PPP money and things for small businesses. My clients who had a relationship with an accountant, with a bank, perhaps with an attorney, are the clients that got the loans, because they had people to go to immediately and say, how do I do this? How do I apply for this loan? How can I make this happen? And those people did, because the banks were interested in serving their clients first. The accountants knew where the money was coming from and how to make those applications. And the attorneys sometimes got involved as well, depending on the situation. So it was a relationship issue for those people, that they had somebody and they could call on somebody and they could take action right away. So that's just kind of an example of something that leads to build those relationships right away. So we have a couple of questions and a chat. Let me see. A question: where can I find out what regulations my particular business has to comply with?
Yep. Well, I mean, I could start with that.
Okay.
First, it depends on your industry, certainly. I would start in one of probably a few places. One is, there is various trade organizations out there that have good resources. For example, there's if you're an accountant, they have, the accountancy societies. If you're a physician, they have the medical board of examiners websites and resources. So without knowing specifically what industry we're talking about, I would always start with sort of the industry specific societies that are out there. And then, as both Tina and I said, there's professionals that focus on whatever industry you're talking about. And oftentimes they know off the top of their head, okay, you need to do A, B, and C.
Tina, do you have any suggestions for the regulations, where we can find regulations?
Sometimes too, you can, depending on what your industry is, you can go onto the state website, because that tells you a lot about because there's in the state of New Jersey, you don't have to have licenses for certain things, or your business, your township and your county in which you live, they will have a list of the things, of the type of business that you are, whether you can run it from out of your house. There's some businesses you can't work from home. If you've got a lot of people coming to your house, there's different regulations in the zoning laws of what you can do. So once you've talked to, you can contact SCORE. They have different articles and things like that. But I suggest going to your state office, going online to the state, because they can tell you a lot, where it even says startup business. Go in there, there's on sales and use tax, all the different things that your business needs to stay in compliance with as well, to operate correctly where you're at.
Yeah, NewJersey.gov is another, I think that's a good place to start.
Yes, would you say that again, Rob?
NewJersey.gov.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
There you
something
go.
we give, Mary Ann and I give that out to a lot of new businesses.
Yes, there's a lot of great information on that site.
Mhm.
So here's the question from Jessica. Where can I find a business agreement if I were to work with a brand partnership?
I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking. I mean, again, I'll look at it from the legal perspective. I draft contracts for businesses with their customers, that whether it's a service related industry, whether it's a manufacturing where they're supplying product, or software where they're developing product. So if it's that type of agreement, that can be prepared by a corporate attorney such as myself or whomever. If you're talking about branding in terms of like trademarking, like you have a brand that you want to get protection on, there are trademark attorneys out there that specialize in filing trademarks and protecting the brand, the brand name. So again, I'm not specifically sure, but you start with a corporate attorney, I think is on either answer.
You can go to your county law association and find attorneys by their specialty, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the bar association in terms of
Right.
legal side has a directory of attorneys, and within the bar association, there's sub specialties in terms of the committee for whatever cannabis, the committee for corporate, the committee for litigation, and so there are folks that are again sort of tied to each of those specialties.
Right. And I kind of would go back to what Peter said earlier. If you're creating an agreement between yourself and another brand, or you're trying to do something with your brand, the best way to do it would be to do it with an attorney, as opposed to, pulling something down from the web and then just using that. Sometimes you could take something from LegalZoom or one of the other web-based agreements, and you can find business agreements all over the web, all over. It might be a place where you want to take a look and see what's involved in a business agreement and give yourself some information about that. But those templated agreements aren't going to have anything specific to your brand, your business, your needs. And that's where that attorney would come in to protect you specifically.
No, Jane, that's a really good point. I mean, you can find agreements. I mean, you just Google agreements and you'll get a ton of agreements that pop up. But I would use that more for educational purposes, to just get a foundation of the things that you should be thinking about. As Jane said, you may be looking at an entirely wrong template that's for something completely unrelated, or something very specific that has nothing to do with perhaps what you're doing. So it's a good resource to get an understanding of what you should be looking for and asking. But I don't know if I would ever recommend using that as the product. Again, I would have you contact myself or some other attorney that does that.
This might be a question for Tina. How do you determine what you should pay yourself?
Depends on how much you're making in your business. A lot of times when you're first starting out, that's a hard thing to decide, because depending on what you do, how much do you have to sell in order to pay yourself the amount that you want? The best thing to do is take your business, what it is, like with accounting or tax. Say I only did taxes the 3 months out of the year. What I would do is I would add up how many tax returns at what cost and how much it's going to cost me to do those tax returns, and what's my profit at the end of each one, and how much do I want to make? Because you have to work enough to make what you want to pay yourself. And when you own the business, if your business is not doing that well, then you have to change what you're taking home. what you're bringing out of it. So it all depends on if you are doing sales of some sort, if you have a product that you sell, how much do you want to make? And it's how much do you have to put that item for sale in order to have the profit, in order to pay yourself the right amount. So it all depends on the industry that you're in and the formulation that you use, whether you're service-based, whether you're product-based, if you're in direct sales, whatever it is, it all depends on the cost of the service or the product, and how much you sell is what you're, you can put yourself saying, okay, I want to make $500 a week. How much do I have to sell? How many services do I have to do in order to keep that $500 for myself? And you kind of work backwards. It's kind of like the profit first, way is you've got your income minus your profit equals your expenses. So if you don't have a lot of expenses, or ways to cut back in the expenses, you can always pay yourself more. So it depends on what you're really doing.
Kind of how much do you need to make, want to make, need to make, and how much your business can afford. And there's a balance between that, and it's always juggling.
Mm-hmm.
In the good times, you're happier.
Right.
The check is bigger, right?
That's right.
Thank you. And one question from Kathleen. Can you give us any place to start with privacy agreements for websites?
Yeah, I think I probably answer it the same way as I said a second ago, in terms of there are certainly resources online that you can find templates. Again, you just Google website privacy terms and privacy terms and conditions, and I'm sure you'll find a lot. You get an understanding of what you may or may not want in there. And then, for example, I have a partner that specializes in intellectual property and websites and all the things that go into websites. And I would suggest again, you get a foundation and talk to my partner.
Great. So I think we're coming right up to against 10 o'clock. So I just want to remind everybody, all of these professionals that you're going to need at some point in your business, sooner rather than later, are all relationships. Start researching, finding the professional that meets your needs and with whom you feel comfortable with, because you may end up having a long-term relationship with that person. And start building those relationships now so that you have them if and when you need them. Thank you to our presenters, Tina, Peter, and Rob. You did an excellent presentation. I put their information back up on the screens, so if you want to contact them directly, you can do that via their emails. We will be sending Rob's slides out for you, and the webinar will be posted on our website at centraljersey.score.org. Thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you again on another webinar in the future.